Wolfpack football fans knew this already, but now the rest of the country is taking notice. Justin Joly is one of the top tight ends in the entire country.
You are Locked On Wolfpack, your daily podcast on the NC State Wolfpack, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, Wolfpack Nation? It's time to get locked in with Locked On. Thanks for making Locked On Wolfpack your first listen each and every day. We are free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Happy Friday to all. As always, I am Grayson Boone, flying this thing solo here on Friday. Kenton was unable to join me on this podcast, but I didn't want to leave y'all hanging, especially on a Fan Friday. So I'm running this one solo. It will be relatively shorter in length, but I'll give you as much as I can here. Lone wolf in it. First thing I want to talk about here on Friday is NC State football tight end Justin Joly. Anyone that joined us here on this podcast for the duration of last football season knows how we feel about him. We have said all along that he easily has the potential to be one of the top tight ends in all of college football. The season went on. Of course, things did not go the way we wanted them to, primarily with the quarterback play, and we never got to see as much of Justin Joly as we certainly wanted to, or in many parts of the season needed to. And so that leads us into 2025 here with a new coordinator in Kurt Roper. You bring back CJ Bailey as your quarterback and all the other offensive pieces around them, namely, the wide receiving room, your top running backs and Hollywood Smothers. But I say all that to say the offense should be the clear-cut leaders of the pack, pun intended. The offense is going to have to be what this team leans on this year in order to win a lot of ball games, because we all have noticed what the defense is or maybe will not be in 2025. And so the offense certainly has a task at hand. But when you're looking at the offense and how they should succeed this year, number one, get the ball into the hands of your playmaker. The two of us on here screamed about that for the entire season last year, and we just never got enough of it because of inconsistencies across the board. Moving into this season, you have got to find a way to link up with who is one of the best tight ends in the entire country. And if you want me to keep my red-tinted glasses on, I don't think there's anyone in front of him. There's a CBS Sports list that named the top 150 college football players in the nation. Justin Joly was the lone Wolfpacker on it. He clocked in at 142 out of 150, and he was the number 4 tight end in the entire list. I don't see 3 ahead of him, if you're asking me. Now, I understand that there's going to be, tight ends for Ohio State, and even if they transferred into Ohio State, we're not even on the Buckeyes last year, just because they play for Ohio State, they're going to get that notoriety. But something that we obviously all watched over the course of last football season, Justin Joly is a dynamic, game-breaking athlete every single time you put the ball in his hands. And we had to put my grandmother in a cage. This is purely a joke that didn't actually happen. But for the vibes, I had to put my hypothetical grandmother in a cage last year, because that is how badly we needed to reinvigorate the offense and utilize your best playmakers. Justin Joly is one of the best players on the field every single time his 2 feet are on it. And NC State failing to realize that, or at least put that into action early in the season, it had a lot to do with why we struggled so much. It kind of consisted all throughout the rest of the season as well, unfortunately. But the number one thing you hope is lessons learned, because you cannot afford to underutilize Justin Joly again in 2025. And last year, Justin Joly caught just 43 passes for 661 receiving yards, which was top on the team. So think about that. He was the leader in receiving yards last year, and the majority of us felt like we never even got him the ball. Only 43 catches. I don't think it's hyperbole at all to say that he should be looking to have like double that. He should essentially get the Casey Concepcion treatment without getting overly predictable like Robert and I was with KC. No screenplays, please, but you have got to find ways to consistently look for, he wears number 7 this year, Justin Joly. Look for number 7 this year. His ability to stretch the field, his ability to break tackles, high point the football, his speed at a guy his size is otherworldly. There is simply no viable reason that he is not one of the most prominent features in your offense. I said this at one point during the season last year. I don't think it's a stretch that you should look to throw him the ball on like every single play. I don't think it's that crazy of an idea. Now, you would get predictable, obviously, but the level of talent that he is, I don't think it's that crazy of an idea. So when you're looking at NC State this year and what they're going to need out of their offense to stay competitive in a lot of these ball games, it can start right up front with Justin Joly. If NC State and Kurt Roper and CJ Bailey are able to use Justin Joly this season the way that at least I hope that they can, which is at some points maybe even overusing him. Another thing that is not hyperbolic at all, he should be in the conversation for the Mackey Award, which is the top tight end in the country. I don't think that's a stretch at all. Again, 661 receiving yards and 4 touchdowns last year, and none of us even feel like we ever threw him the ball. At least every time we did, it was like 3rd and 15 or 4th and 26. It was always a bailout situation and never getting ahead of the chains and staying ahead of the chains on 1st and 2nd down. If you feed him the ball, he will not disappoint. Justin Joly is a dynamic athlete, tight end, wide receiver, person, anything you can put him under, he will excel. And so this is my plea to Kurt Roper and the NC State Wolfpack football offense. Find 7. Find him early. Find him often. I would go as far as to say to find him too much. There is a reason that Justin Joly was already getting some NFL looks before this past offseason. In fact, I was a person that didn't think Justin Joly would be returning to NC State because of all the NFL looks that he was already getting. So this will be his bag year. This will be the year that will get him drafted or not. And so if NC State does what they're supposed to do and utilize their best playmakers like Justin Joly, not only will he get drafted, but he will have a phenomenal season at NC State. Coming up next, I'm getting into Fan Friday, addressing our top comments of the week. This comes after a quick word from our sponsors. Our Friday sponsor is Supply House. Get the options you need from the site made for the skilled trades, Supply House. Whether you're in plumbing, HVAC, or electrical work, Supply House is the most reliable way to order all of your products online. Their easy-to-use website is packed with helpful resources and the latest product info to help you get the job done right. Plus, with a complete inventory of over 200,000 parts from the top 400-plus brands, you'll always find exactly what you need delivered fast from coast to coast. If you need help with an order, Supply House offers expert support and industry-leading service, so you'll always be able to talk to a real person and not a robot. And for trade pros looking for that extra edge, their free Trademaster program offers exclusive perks like a dedicated phone line, free shipping, and discounts on each and every order. Thousands of skilled professionals are already taking advantage, and now it's your turn. Join the Trademaster program today at supplyhouse.com/TM, capital T, capital M, and start ordering plumbing, HVAC, and electrical supplies with just a few clicks. Plus, you can use the promo code SH5 for 5% off of your first order. That's capital S, capital H, and the number 5, SH5 for 5% off on your first order. Only on supplyhouse.com. Middle portion of our Friday show. Now time to get into Fan Friday, addressing our top comments of the week. Here we go. First one comes from Michael McCaskill. It says, any word on what Wade is doing on the high school recruiting trails? They're working the portal well, but going after the high school players is where the program's sustainment comes from. What's been interesting to watch so far in the extremely early stages of Will Wade on the high school recruiting trail is I think I've only seen 5-star kids connected to Will Wade at NC State, which is completely hilarious. And it's a bit of a culture shock. We already know that Matt Abel is a 5-star kid that committed to NC State very early in this offseason, and he will be a part of this year 1 team for Will Wade. 5-star kid, extremely talented, and that was the first high school get for Will Wade at NC State. Straight off of the bat, a 5-star kid. The next high school kid I saw in contact with NC State was another 5-star by the name of Tony Bryant, and I believe he actually just recently visited NC State as well. I also saw that Andrew Slater was up in White Plains, New York at Archbishop Stepnack High School, checking out 4-star kids, Josiah Jervis, Adonis Ratliff, and Darius Ratliff. So Andrew Slater has already been using his New York connections and going out on the road and getting some high school recruiting done as well. The real answer to this question is not one that any of us can answer quite yet because it's so early in the process, and we're still going to have to wait and see what his, I guess, techniques are for going after the high school recruiting trails. But something that instantly jumps off the page here in just a little bit over a month, it's all high-level kids that he's in contact with. The majority have been 5-star kids with a couple 4-stars mixed in there as well. It'll be interesting to watch how the transition moves from year 1 to year 2 when hopefully you don't have to rely so heavily on getting guys in the portal, because you have to remember he is rebuilding an entire roster in just 1 year. And to do that, like 90% of it, if not like 95% of it, it's going to have to come from the college transfer portal. But yes, once you get into year 2, obviously, to your point here, Michael, that program sustainment or stability is going to come in large part from the high school ranks. And when you have a kid like Matt Abel that still has 4 years of eligibility, and I don't know what kind of contributions you'll get from him right away, but some of these other 5-star kids, they're going to come to NC State and they'll be able to play essentially right away. And I think the goal here, both Will Wade and Andrew Slater, they want to start bringing in the same like 5-star talents that are going to the Dukes, the Kansases, the Kentuckys. I saw a quote from Andrew Slater saying that he wants to build this program into a championship contender as quickly as possible. And when you're landing 5-star kids that are coming in that can play right away, that's a massive part of how you're able to do that. So this will be one of the main things I'll be very interested in watching here. I know that Will Wade was at LSU for 6 years, I think it was. And inside of those 6 years, if I remember correctly, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I think it was like 3 of those 6 recruiting classes were like 3 of the highest in the history of LSU. He's looking to have that same level of impact here at NC State. He wants to bring the highest level of recruiting that we have ever seen. And by ever, I mean like ever. Like ever. Like throughout the 70s, the 80s, the Jim Valvano era, like ever. He's looking to bring the top classes that NC State has ever seen. And if he's able to land some of those, that is how you very quickly establish NC State basketball back into the type of winner we used to be in the 70s and 80s. Next one comes from Too Much Talent, which is a very ironic handle there. It's hard to win championships without a dominant big guy. I trust Will Wade, but I'm getting nervous about the big man situation. So yeah, I certainly understand this. And we spoke a little bit about James Scott, both on Wednesday and the Thursday episode. And there has been a little bit of kind of waiting around and seeing what's going to happen for NC State in the involvement with center James Scott, who's coming from Louisville, but he's in the portal and still has not made a decision as of yet. NC State was widely believed to be the school, and Will Wade was believed to be the coach that was able to lure him into the portal. So I think a lot of us kind of expected things to move relatively quickly there, but as we all find out, it's not always that easy. James Scott, as I understand, is still going through the final stages of his facial, I guess, reconstruction. Last I heard from Pack Pride was essentially that he is still wrapping things up there, and then he's going to get into the recruiting process. And we also spoke on the Thursday episode that James Scott has been linked to Auburn, and supposedly he will be taking a visit, but NC State needs to make every effort and sell out to the point where you got to get James Scott to come to NC State. He has now become that important to this roster, and I know there's certainly other options. It's not do or die with James Scott, but if you're going to lure him into the portal, there's a very clear reason why you went to those lengths to do such a thing. You want him very badly to come fill out that center position and then really shore up the front court, because the front court is the most glaring deficiency at the current moment, and that's being worked on, obviously, as we speak. But James Scott would be a vital, vital piece to this team. His ability around the rim as a dunker, one of the best dunkers in the country, and not just that, but protecting the rim on the defensive end as well. I think he averaged 7 and 6 at Louisville this past season. I think this question actually ties directly into the next slide I have on here. Yes, it is this one. So this one comes from Wombat. They say, I think James Scott more than Louisville does. And also, you normally have to pay extra to get somebody to move from a comfortable situation. I think we should overpay a bit for Scott. I do not know the numbers involved, but say Louisville is paying him $600K. I think we should offer 1.2 mil. He would resolve a very serious problem on our roster. So essentially continuing my same thought there from the last post, James Scott has very quickly become a super, super, super important piece to this roster in this coming year. And sometimes to lock that down, you do have to shell out maybe a little bit more money than maybe you had set aside or you were hoping to use. But at this point in the cycle, I think it's worth it, because now we're in May and the options remaining are starting to dwindle. And NC State drawing James Scott into the portal was obviously for a very clear reason. They want him here. And so to see a team like Auburn trying to get into the mix, but James Scott being from Fayetteville, I know a lot of people are talking about his potential involvement with Trey Parker. That's an interesting situation, because by the way that Trey Parker is posting on social media, it really looks like he's just like waiting for something. And whether that's James Scott or not, Trey Parker just appears to just be like hanging out in Raleigh, He's still working out in the Dale Center, and he's just waiting for something. He keeps posting those spinning hourglass emojis, and it's like, okay, well, we haven't seen you go on any public visits, so is it James Scott that you're waiting for? I think with the two of them being friends, there's plenty of reason to believe that may be the case, but James Scott is a massive piece for NC State to try and finish rounding out this puzzle. And so you certainly hope that they can close on this sooner than later. I believe I said on the Wednesday show, I think maybe by the end of this coming week is where you'll look to see some hopeful action. And by all accounts, it seems like NC State is the current front runner. So something to definitely keep your eyeballs out for. And James Scott, yeah, he is much, much more needed in Raleigh than he is in Louisville. Last one here comes from OBX Tri-Wolf. It says, could y'all discuss our lack of progress in the football transfer portal? Do you think that along with lackluster coordinator hires and Dave's apparent disinterest during the Military Bowl against EZU are signs that he's mentally checked out and just mailing it in? So I want to be delicate about how I word all of this, but I think I've been pretty clear about my thoughts on all of this in the aftermath of the Military Bowl back at the end of last year, the end of December. It was very clear that ECU was taking that bowl game a lot more seriously than NC State was, and I think the end result is no coincidence, in fact. But the lack of progress in the football transfer portal, I wouldn't necessarily say there's lack of progress. It's just that really the defense is the only side of the ball that needed work. The offense is pretty much set. I mean, you went out and identified your offensive linemen early and you got them. Your quarterback, you already have it. Running backs, you're good. Wide receivers, you're good. Tight ends, you're good. Although you picked up one in Cody Hardy from Elon. The only side of the ball that needs attention is defense. And they've been working pretty diligently to try and add pieces, and they've done so. I mean, they've added a couple pieces on the defensive line, a couple linebackers. They added a couple DBs back in the early stages of the offseason. So I wouldn't say there's lack of progress. I think there's maybe just lack of like big names. I guess I should say it that way. There's really no pop in some of the guys you're bringing to Raleigh, but that's okay. Like, I know the Carolina fans are saying, oh, look at UNC's transfer portal class. We're 6th in the country. And at NC State's in like in the 60 range. Yeah, it's because we didn't have to really do a whole lot. We had to go replace some supplemental pieces in the defense, but we relatively have like 80% of our team already configured. That's why. Carolina has to reconfigure their entire roster, and so by nature, that volume is going to bring up their transfer portal rankings. Now, of course, you can't expect them to understand that because, you know, they're Carolina. They're better than everybody else. Why should they understand numbers? Anyway, on the points of the coordinator hires, I cannot remember if I said it on here or if I just said it to Kenton or others. So I'll put it to you like this. I believe that the coordinator hires in particular, that the fact that they weren't splash hires. DJ Elliott was, a previous defensive coordinator at some other stops, but he was never really crushing it per se. He spent a little time with the Philadelphia Eagles in the NFL as well. That was short-lived. It was just 1 year. And bringing DJ Elliott to State and then your offensive coordinator is an internal hire, which I do think that makes a lot of sense regardless of, other extenuating factors. But the fact that it wasn't a splash hire, this is where I'll be very real. That reads to me like you are nearing the end of an era. And two of these hires being relatively, I guess, uninspiring, you should say. I think the reason that happened is because it's very easily wiped out if, let's say, there's a coaching change at the end of the season. But what I will say to you, OBX Tri-Wolf, is you are reading the tea leaves. I'm picking up what you're putting down, and you are reading what you think you are reading. And anyone that has similar thoughts, I will confirm those as well. So we'll see where this goes. Obviously, the season is pretty much boom or bust. It really feels that way, not just for the coaching staff, but for a lot of the players on the roster as well. At this point, after how big of a letdown last year was, this year, I mean, it either will be good or it won't be good. And if it won't be good, you'll see the consequences play out exactly how we, most of us expect them to. So we'll cross that bridge when we get there. But yes, you are reading what you think you're reading. Coming up next, NC State baseball is down in Miami this weekend, a pivotal series for NC State to stay in the NCAA tournament hosting conversation. Let's talk about it. More on this after a quick word from our sponsors. Last couple minutes of our Friday show. NC State baseball is on the road this weekend down in Miami to play the Miami Hurricanes. This is a big-time series if NC State wants to stay serious about hosting a Raleigh Regional for the second consecutive year. Now, we all know that we dropped the Tuesday midweek game against UNCW by a score of 6-3. Certainly puts a ding in your RPI. You drop from 22 back to 28. And to get into that top 8, which should be the goal because you want to be in line to host not just a regional, but a super regional, because it greatly increases your chances of reaching to Omaha. It certainly only gets tougher from here. And that loss to UNCW, it's not the end of the world, but the competition for those top 8 seeds are so unbearably tough that a loss like that, and exactly when it came, it becomes hard to recover from. But that is why I lead you into this conversation. This is a must-win series. Well, not a surprise. The rest of the series this year are must-win. There's a lot of talk about Miami being hot right now. They're playing good baseball. They've swept, I believe, their last 2 series in a row. What people don't look into is in the beginning of the season, Miami was bad. I mean, they were having conversations of firing their head coach because of how bad things are going. And Miami is typically a very strong program. I mean, they're playing better right now. But if you look at the entire pie, which is their entire season, it's been extremely up and down. Like the early parts of the season, like I was saying, they were not good. They were dropping midweeks. They're dropping early ACC series. And it's just until recently that they've turned it around. This is a prime opportunity for NC State to stay hot. I don't think that the Tuesday night road bump will be a road this weekend because you wipe it and you move on. But the way that NC State came out and established dominance early against Clemson last weekend, it's that same energy that you have to have against Miami this weekend. Obviously, it's much tougher to do that on the road than it is at home. So that focus, that attention to detail, it only gets more important. Now, I believe that Miami will be starting Griffin Hughes on the mound. He's their Friday night starter. Very good pitcher. He's nothing absurd, though. I don't think he's an Aiden Canuck from Clemson, for example. So he's certainly beatable, but that's why the attention will turn on to Dom Fritton. We need a quality start from Dom to be locked in, and then the offense to handle the rest of their business from there. And the way that NC State can set the tone on a Friday night, again, just like you saw last weekend, it goes an extremely long way in any series, but especially when you're on the road playing against a team that's been relatively hot as well. So if NC State wants to go on the road and take this series, it will start from the first pitch on Friday night. The first inning, the first batter, the first out, all that. You have to set the tone from the jump. Obviously, like we've been seeing these last couple weekends, and like we talked about with Andrew Sanders on the Tuesday episode, the NC State bullpen is an immediate advantage. I'll go a little bit further. The Miami bullpen is actually not very good. Their starters are somewhat decent, and their offense can come on at times, but the Miami bullpen has been pretty mediocre for the entirety of this year. So NC State comes into the series with that clear-cut advantage. We have Anderson Nance. They do not. We have Jacob Duden. They do not. We have now a Derek Smith back in the bullpen. They do not. If you can bridge the gap and give those guys a lead, you are in phenomenal position to not just take the series, but if everything goes the way you hope it does, hopefully sweep on the road. And in all honesty, winning this series on the road, or I mean, if you want to take it that far, sweeping on the road, it will undo the blemish that you put on your resume from Tuesday night. It will completely wipe it back off. You'll probably even go back to 22 or higher in RPI. So that should be the goal. It's all gas, no brakes, go on the road and handle business. The way that Dom Fritton and Heath Andrews had a massive start last weekend, Ryan Marone's been a dog for the whole season. The pitching staff bridging to the bullpen with a lead, that's been the secret sauce for this team all season long, and it will not be any different here on Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. That is the sauce, and NC State needs to whip it up and serve it out. And the last thing I'll say as well, be aggressive in the box. They have got to find a way to manufacture runs early. You put the pressure on them early when you can put up a crooked number in the first, second, or third inning. Put the pressure on them to have to play perfect baseball to beat you. Once you force the issue and you already have the upper hand in terms of pitching staff and bullpen, ride that momentum, ride that advantage, and go on the road and take this series. We'll worry about the rest of the season during the rest of the season. But right now, this weekend, this is all we got. This is all we have to focus on for the next 72 hours. Not hosting, not regionals, not super regionals. Only focus on these 3 games. Take them one game at a time inside that series. So pivotal series this weekend for NC State baseball down in Miami. First pitch will be 7 p.m. on Friday evening. Dom Fritton against Griffin Hughes of the Miami Hurricanes. Should be a good one. buckle up. That will do it for us here on Friday. As always, thank you all so much for joining us, especially for me flying this thing solo. I appreciate each and every one of you sticking with us. I know Kenton is the main draw of this show. I'm not an idiot, so it's probably tough to hear me blabber for however long this episode went on. Greatly appreciate each and every one of you for tuning in, not just today, but for the entirety of the week as well. Be sure to mash that like button. Drop your comments in the comment box. Tell us your thoughts on Justin Joly being a top tight end in the country, not just top 5. He ain't top 3. He ain't top 2 either. Let us know your thoughts on what he means to NC State, the Wolfpack offense here in 2025, and hopefully a high rate of usage to follow. Let us know additional thoughts on PJ Haggerty or James Scott, still in the mix for NC State to acquire them out of the transfer portal. I even saw late on Thursday night, Jeff Goodman said that NC State might be in the front-runner position for PJ Haggerty. He was supposed to visit Ole Miss, but apparently that's no longer in the works, or maybe it never was in the works, but he is not currently scheduled to visit Ole Miss. What does that mean? That could be something serious considering that Texas is also not in the mix. I don't anticipate that Memphis will get a return trip from PJ Haggerty either. So if NC State is now suddenly finding themselves in the driver's seat, come on, Will Wade. Come on, Andrew Slater. Bring this guy home. Let's turn up and get ready for a very exciting year 1. Anything else you have on your mind, drop that in the comment box as well. Mash that subscribe button. We'll be right back here in action on Monday for more. And until then, go Pack.